Read the news lately?
Specifically because of what the government did to artificially stimulate the economy in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. Because the government came to the rescue by printing a lot of money, bailing out the banks, propping up the housing market, racking up trillions of dollars of additional debt so we can consume more stuff that we couldn't afford and pay for it with borrowed and printed money. All we did is delay the day of reckoning. But in so doing, we exacerbated all of the problems that make that day of reckoning necessary. And so, yes, the next crash that's coming, and whether it's 2013 or 14 or a little bit later, is hard to say for sure. Knowing exactly when something's going to happen is harder than knowing that it will happen. But we've got a much bigger collapse coming, and not just of the markets, but of the economy. Something that it's like what you're seeing in Europe right now, only worse.
Corporate and Wall Street lobbying influence in America and the world's political processes has been described as one of the gravest political concerns of our era. How did Americans go from fighting and dying for freedom from tyranny to allowing corporate tyrants to globally expand their influence through generous contributions to Americans' lawmakers? One of the main problems with American politics is that we have a two-party system. The structure of this system by its very nature is divisive, and Americans can only vote on one candidate per race and not on individual legislative issues. Alternatively, with MyNewsMatters' new public lobbying platform, before any legislation is posted within one of our petitions, it must first receive over 55% of national voter sentiment. And while this legislation is making its way through Congress, MyNewsMatters' critical mass tables represent whether voters are getting closer to obtaining the legislation that they supported through sentiment and signature passed into U.S. law. America currently has a $16 trillion debt, slightly over 100% of our yearly GDP, with deficit spending past $1 trillion each year now, as our government takes in less taxes than it spends. Whatever tax system, scaled or flat, that is proposed, it must be fair and generate enough income for America to pay its expenses, to produce at least a balanced budget with yearly debt reduction measures. Recently, Representative John Bonner stated, "We've got a personal tax system that is so complicated it costs Americans about $500 billion a year to comply. Just think that if America adopted a simple, flat, or fair tax with no deductions and few exceptions, that instead of American businesses and citizens paying third parties to comply, this $500 billion a year would go directly towards significantly paying down America's yearly deficits and debt." Nationalize the Federal Reserve and bring it under direct public and congressional oversight. America has got to stop printing money as a means to pay its debts. These practices will only lead to hyperinflation, or rising consumer prices with a rapid decrease in value for the U.S. dollar. Bring back the Glass-Steagall Act, which became law in the wake of the Great Depression of 1929. It stated that commercial banks could not own or operate insurance companies or Wall Street investment banks, as they typically engage in risky behavior. This act protected America's financial systems and Americans for over 60 years before it was repealed in 1999. Create an exchange for the $600 trillion plus derivatives market, as derivatives were at the heart of America's recent Great Recession. But currently they're still not regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, leaving American taxpayers on the hook again if too-big-to-fail banks fail like they did in 2009. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, signed into law in 2010, essentially oversees the entire healthcare insurance industry. It is a federal law that creates state-based exchanges where only private companies can sell insurance to consumers. The day this law was signed, the stock of the 8 largest health insurance companies skyrocketed, as without a public option or a federal exchange would leave most all the fraud and waste in America's healthcare insurance systems. Currently, Our United World is offering closing gifts for sale to fund building our voter-based legislative petitioning software. After MyNewsMatters is generating profits, then our goal is to provide 10% of all these surpluses to charities and other social organizations.